Executive compensation influences decision-making more than most sales teams know. It is so influential that it even drives executives to invest in your solutions. A survey by FinListics shows that only about 10% of sales organizations make executive compensation part of their sales process. In this session on insight-led selling, adopt, and executive mindset, I will explore executive compensation, how to find it, and how to use it with client executives so you can be prepared to ace the meeting. The benefits of your sales process in knowing executive compensation include allowing you to highlight those areas that are most important to client executives, communicate more effectively with executives, create more personalized proposals that show not only traditional financial benefits like return on investment, but also the impact on the compensation metrics. Let's start by reviewing the essentials of executive compensation. Then, I will show you how to use your knowledge of executive compensation in conversations with client executives. First of all, what is it? Executive compensation is established by the Compensation Committee and consists of three parts: a base salary, which is cash compensation; annual incentives, which are often based on corporate performance and individual goals and paid out in cash; and long-term incentives, which are typically based on share price performance and are paid out in some form of equity ownership. Elon Musk, for example, receives no cash compensation but is compensated through stock options. In today's session, we'll focus on annual incentives because it is more straightforward to tie your solutions to the plan's financial components than to stock price performance. I am a finance type, and I often wonder what really drives stock prices. What's in it? Annual incentive plans typically include financial metrics like revenues, profits, and earnings per share. They also include strategic initiatives. These can include initiatives such as sustainability, net promoter score, and diversity. Where is it found? Executive compensation is found in the Security Exchange Proxy Statement, Form DEF 14A, for companies filing in the United States. Outside the United States, search for executive compensation in the client's annual report, which includes the remuneration report and governance report. Why are executives' incentives important to sales organizations? As I said earlier, it highlights those areas that are most important to client executives. It lets you more effectively communicate with executives. And third, it allows you to create more personalized proposals. Let's discuss a practical application of using executive compensation. Here is an example of a real-world consumer product's annual incentive executive compensation. Organic sales growth is 40%. Organic sales are those from existing businesses. It does not include sales from acquisitions. Another 40% is from profits. And strategic initiatives make up the remaining 20%. I personally know the benefits of using executive compensation when working with client executives. I was working with one of my clients that provides supply chain management solutions. They had been engaged by a large retailer whose goal was to improve supply chain efficiencies to increase profits and cash flow that would be reinvested back into the company to fuel revenue growth. My job was to estimate the proposed project's financial benefits. I was part of the team presenting to the executive committee, which included executives such as the CEO, the CFO, SVP of supply chain, SVP of merchandising, and SVP of store operations. The executives we presented were compensated on revenue, profits, and earnings per share. During my presentation of potential financial benefits, I shared all the traditional benefits, like cash flow, net present value, and return on investment. I also shared the impact of their executive compensation metrics, revenue, profits, and earnings per share. During the project, I became close with the SVP of supply chain. He looked at me, smiled, and asked if I had selected those areas of financial performance for any particular reason. I said it seemed like a good idea. Some of the executive committee laughed, and then they knew that I knew. I'm often asked how to best use compensation information with client executives. It really depends on your relationship with the executive. If you are just forming a relationship, it is strongly recommended that you don't explicitly say something like, "I conducted some research and discovered that you are bonused on," even though this information is in the public domain for publicly traded companies. This approach likely will not be well received. Instead, it's suggested that you make the components of compensation part of the discussion with executives. For example, using the consumer products example, you could utilize what I like to call the indirect approach and say, "We'd like to explore ways to work with you to achieve your goals and improve financial performance, focusing on areas like revenue, profits, and earnings per share." You've not explicitly said you know those are metrics on which they are bonused, but they'll know you know. Doing this will separate you from many of your competitors. If you are new to the client relationship, the indirect approach is stronger. A direct approach may not be well received and could be seen as a bit creepy. Referencing executive compensation can be different when you already have a relationship with a senior executive. I was talking about this with a banking CFO, and he commented, "I don't mind sellers knowing how I'm measured. We're a public company, and they can find that information in our proxy statement. Executives are often measured on return on assets and a few other things. And if a seller tells me, 'I understand that this is how you're measured, and this is how I can help you with that,' and they can actually prove it, they have my attention." Some people don't like to talk about executive compensation, but I view it as, okay, they did their research. That's not a bad thing. Another question I'm often asked is how to use compensation information when you're not engaged with senior executives. This information is still useful since a senior executive's compensation metrics will cascade down to those reporting to that executive. It is also recommended that you include the impact of your solutions on relevant compensation metrics in proposals. Again, using the consumer products company as an example, say you're collaborating with the client to develop a more extensive omni-channel solution that will increase executive compensation metrics, revenue, and profits. Your proposal will include traditional criteria like net cash flow, return on investment, and payback. But to make it more relevant, you should explicitly show the dollar increase in revenue and profit. Okay, let me summarize the key takeaways for including executive compensation in your sales presentations. It influences decision-making, such as investing in your solutions. Unfortunately, only about 10% of sales organizations make executive compensation part of their sales process. The benefits include: it highlights those areas that are most important to client executives. It lets you more effectively communicate with executives. And it allows you to create more personalized proposals. And don't forget, if you are just starting a relationship with a client executive, don't be creepy and directly reference how they are bonused. It's time for your call to action. First, research your client's executive compensation. Remember, if the client is domiciled in the United States, executive compensation is found in the DEF 14A. Next, identify at least one of the compensation metrics and create a value proposition regarding how your solutions can help. Finally, use your value proposition when engaging with client executives. If you are not already using executive compensation, try it. I'm confident that you will be pleased with the results. One last call to action is to download a complimentary copy of the Amazon bestseller Insight-Led Selling. You can find the link in the video description. Good luck and happy selling.